Matt, thank you so much for having us here at Noble Riot. We're so excited.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. Okay, first tell us all about Noble Riot. How'd you guys get started? What can we expect when we come in?
Noble Riot started in 2019 as a sort of natural wine bar in RiNo in northern downtown Denver. And it's evolved over time to be what we call an honest wine bar. So we feature the stories of winemakers, the stories of the people who make the wine, and we try to bring a little bit of nerd into all the interactions that we have with our guests.
I am all about a little bit of nerd. That is just right up my alley. And it's nice to know exactly where your wine is coming from and what the stories are behind it. So that's so wonderful. Now you guys offer some really cool classes, which I really like. You have these taste testing classes. Walk me through what this looks like for people coming in.
Sure, so in the course of a year, we do about 50 different flights and sessions related to those flights. But we also have an educational sort of class component, and we do about 40 or 50 classes a year as well on top of the flights. One of the most popular would be the blind tasting. And that's where we bring all styles of wine in and give folks an opportunity to be a little competitive and to learn a little bit about what's in the glass and connecting their memories to the sensation of reviewing the glass.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna look into this crystal ball here, and I'm predicting that you're gonna let me taste some wine. Am I predicting correctly?
I think you're on the money.
Okay,
I think you're
great.
warm. Yeah.
I have an eye for this stuff, obviously.
I think so far so good.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have some wines here in front of us. Walk me through how to properly taste, what we would learn in one of these classes, and I'm just so lost when it comes to this. So
Sure.
Tell me what to do.
Well, the first thing I always tell folks is that if you're stressed out, you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
This is a matter of really kind of enjoying what's in the glass and trying to piece together a bunch of puzzle clues in order to make a bigger picture.
Ooh, okay.
So I think it's think of it as like a dossier that you're putting together for an intelligence agency.
Ah.
We're trying to figure out what is in the glass.
Right.
So part of this is what we call the deductive theory.
Okay.
So it's removing what it isn't. And that requires some probably background education to sort of look into what the wines may or may not do in terms of what the visual is, what the smell is, and what the taste may be.
Okay.
So we examine the glass first just by looking at it.
Okay.
Right? So I see two white wines here.
Yes.
I don't necessarily know what they are, but I can already tell that one is a little darker than the other.
Definitely.
Right? This is a little more of a straw color. This is more sort of a rich gold.
Yes,
right?
definitely.
And this is a more concentrated color in this wine, and this is a little bit of a lighter kind of fading color in this wine. So what that probably tells me is that this wine is younger, was produced more recently, and this wine is probably older.
Interesting.
Right? It's got a little bit of age to it.
Okay.
I'm also noticing that it has kind of viscosity to it.
Sure.
So that probably tells me that just by looking at it, that we probably saw some oak aging in both of these wines.
Interesting.
Right? What we call water loss, or the angel share.
Okay.
So we look through and just look through also the tears. I see that the tears, or the little rim of water that goes around the glass, if you swirl it around, the tears are an indication of alcohol level and sugar content. So if you have big, drippy, runny tears, that's probably a sign that you have a higher alcohol wine. And if you have fast running tears that are thinner, that's a lower alcohol wine.
Wow.
Right?
Interesting. Okay.
And just by looking at it, I've probably excluded 70% of the grapes out there.
Wow. Okay.
Right? Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Now we go ahead and smell it.
Okay.
Or as Psalms would say, nose it.
Nose it.
All right, let's nose it.
Let's nose.
Let's get nosy.
Let's nose this thing.
All right, so a line one, what's your first impression?
It's kind of airy, light. It doesn't really, it's not super strong going up the nostrils. Am I doing
I think you're right. Yeah, it's
right-ish?
not a hot wine, right?
A hot
the
wine.
alcohol is in like 50%.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little lower,
Yeah.
more medium plus, as we say,
Maybe
instead
a little
of high.
sweet-ish?
Maybe some sweet fruit.
Yeah.
Maybe came from a warmer place, not necessarily cold place. Because what we find also is that wines that are more fruity tend to come from warmer places, and wines that are less fruity and more earthy, and where the fruit isn't the driver of the bus, that's usually a wine that comes from a cooler place.
Okay, interesting. Okay. I wanna
Yeah.
Smell. Let me get nosy with this guy too. Let's
Get nosy.
Ooh. This I feel like smells a little earthier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And
It's-
bolder for sure.
It's showing some interesting signs of age too.
Yeah.
What we call tertiary. So if you
Okay.
ever heard these interesting wine terms, so there's primary, which
Okay.
is usually means fruit,
Okay.
or the fruit smells.
Okay.
Secondary is going to be the things that are like barrel aging and earthy qualities.
Sure.
Tertiary is about how old the wine is
Okay.
and all of the different things that happen as it starts to age and oxidize over time.
Interesting.
And this is showing some kind of fun, nutty characteristics and some sort of almost tropical qualities as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
You are a nerd, Matt.
A big nerd, huge nerd.
Okay. All right. So we've looked at it. We've smelled it.
Yep,
Do we get to taste now?
absolutely. Let's get in there.
Okay.
All right, so a few little sips, and I just swish it around my mouth.
Okay.
Some folks will try to breathe in some air to go over the wine to help sense its alcohol. That's
Okay.
what's happening.
Is that
you're-
Slurpee?
that
they do
slurpy
sometimes?
thing that's
Yeah.
kind of obnoxious sometimes.
Okay.
You're trying to like aerate the wine in your mouth, while also for some folks they're trying to sense the alcohol range.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I won't do too much of that. Yeah,
Wow.
that's fun. Yeah,
I need a bigger taste.
what do you think? That is really tasty.
I like that a lot. Okay, so I'm getting the sweet fruit that we kind of smelled earlier. Crispness. Is that a descriptor word? Did
I think crisp.
Crisp.
I try to drill down a little more and say, is it more acidic?
Oh.
And acidity in the wine helps balance out the alcohol.
Yeah.
And the acidity is something that helps you salivate.
Okay,
Right? So
yep.
sometimes folks will put a little bit of wine in their mouth, kind of do the hamster pocket thing, and then they let it sit there for 5 or 10 seconds, they swallow, and then they see how much saliva rushes back.
Oh.
And because of that saliva rushing through, that is a huge indicator that it's an acidic wine.
Okay, yeah, definitely getting some acidity.
Getting some acidity.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. So, am I in the ballpark of what I should be?
I think you're definitely in the ballpark of where you should be. What do you think the alcohol is? So it ranges. If it's a sweeter wine, it's usually lower.
Okay.
And if it's a dry wine, it's higher.
Ooh,
Dry
okay.
meaning not sweet.
Not sweet. Okay. So I'm saying probably a little lower on the alcohol then. Am
I think it's
correct?
about the middle.
About the
yeah.
middle. This is
it
hard.
doesn't burn your nostrils.
No.
You're not really burning your throat or anything.
No.
So it's a really pleasant wine.
Interesting. Okay. Wonderful. Let's try this other one.
Absolutely. Let's get in
All
there.
right.
Always like to swirl it around to get it kind of activated.
Okay.
Definitely getting some kind of fun melon, tropical banana things.
Yeah, banana. You said
Yeah.
banana. That's
Yep.
definitely tasting that banana. It's I can feel the salivation coming through this
Yeah,
one
yeah,
too.
yeah.
So yeah, definitely a little bit acidic as well. I'm gonna say higher alcohol.
I think you're on the money there.
Okay.
Yeah, the fruit is muted,
Okay.
but that's because it's an older wine.
Right,
But it still
okay.
retains its alcohol. So you start to see this shift from acidity to alcohol being the most present factor.
Okay, all right. So do we grand reveal now? What wines are we drinking?
I am happy to tell you that both of these wines are Chardonnay.
Okay.
All right, so the first one is a Premier Cru from Burgundy, from Meursault from 2019. And the second wine is a California wine grown in the Santa Rita Hills in Central California, and it's from 2013.
Wow. And what's your favorite, Matt, of these two?
If I wanted sort of a crusher, I would go with the first wine. It's a
Okay.
little more light, more fresh.
Yes.
But if I really wanted to have something to study or show off to friends, I'd probably bring the older wine.
Bring the older one. And if people were to get something to pair with this wine, what do you think would go nicely with each of these?
Sure. Well, Chardonnay classically is great with semi-hard cheeses, anything with a crunch in a cheese. We look for milk-based sauces, so think about like an Alfredo sauce.
Oh, yeah.
I would even lean on lemon-driven things like a piccata sauce.
Oh.
But because of its acidity, it's a pretty universal wine. So it goes with lots of things because of its acidity and also because it's really delicious.
Okay. I don't think we should stop here. I think we should try some reds.
I think that's the case. Let's go.
Okay, so Matt, our our color in our glasses have changed.
Right, yeah, magically.
Yes, magically have changed. So we're on reds now.
Yep.
So same process, you look first?
Same process here. There's a few more fault things. We won't get into that too much, but I really want to focus on the same process. So we're going to look at the wine, we're going to smell the wine, and taste the wine.
Okay.
All right, so you should drive this bus this time.
Oh gosh,
so
okay.
Tell me about wine number 1. What color does it look like, and especially in comparison to wine number 2?
Yes, so I'm almost seeing wine number 1 is a little bit more clear than wine number 2. Wine number 2 looks a lot darker, definitely a little heavier almost, it looks like. And then, what do we call those? We call them tears?
The tears,
The
yeah.
tears, okay, so these ones are kind of taking their time dripping down, whereas these ones seem to be not sticking maybe as much to the sides.
Running a little faster.
Running a little faster,
I think
yeah.
you're totally right. There's a
Okay.
clarity to this wine, and there's also a turbidity to this wine.
Okay.
So it's a very dark wine. You couldn't see through that
Right.
color. You couldn't see through that light.
Yeah.
Whereas on this wine, it definitely is a lot brighter, and you could see light through it.
Okay.
Which is a big indicator on the thickness of the grape skins. It's an indicator on its oak aging. It's an indicator on its bottle aging. And sometimes on its like style, like alcohol style.
Interesting. So would that mean wine number 2 here would be a little older, potentially?
Probably a little older, but sometimes and usually when wine gets really old and it's red,
Yeah.
it gets lighter in
Oh,
color.
interesting. Okay.
So this typically shows me that this wine's probably 5 years or younger.
Okay.
And it comes from a family of wines that exhibit dark traits, turbid traits.
Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm all for it.
All right, let's go. And I think you're
right.
right on those tiers too.
Okay.
So on the first wine, we're gonna give it a little whiff here.
Ooh.
What's your first impression?
Definitely. What was the word for earthy again? You told me. already.
Secondary.
Secondary. Feeling a little secondary here.
Yeah.
Wow. It definitely is. It's pungent. It's a pungent one.
It has a lot to say.
It does.
That isn't fruit, for sure.
Yeah.
We have, this is what I call sort of the bloody cherry.
Yeah.
So this kind of goes down that road of a little iodine,
Yes.
iron, like bright kind of being red cherry
Sure.
fruit quality.
Yeah.
And since the fruit is really what is most present in this wine, I typically lean towards this being a varietal that was grown somewhere in the New World, so anywhere that's not Europe.
Okay.
So somewhere warm, probably more in America, South America, Australia.
Interesting. Okay, and it's not, some reds, you know, even when you're just taking a sip, kind of hit the back of your throat pretty hard. I feel
Yeah.
like this one isn't really doing that.
Doesn't hit you, yeah.
No.
So that probably means the alcohol's on the lower side.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see this guy.
All right.
Wow.
This one's fun.
Yeah, this one, it's almost like a salty, maybe chocolatey?
Yeah, we call that like the sea brine quality.
Yes, yeah,
Yep.
like fishy almost.
So if you ever kind of spend time on a coast and
Yes.
you're really right by the water, then you get that kind of hit of sea air. It's kind of a lot like that.
Okay,
which is not
interesting.
necessarily an indicator that it comes from a sea area, but it definitely shoots me more in that direction.
Right, and this one I do feel like hits the throat a little bit more than the other one, so maybe a little bit higher alcohol.
I would definitely venture there. It is kind of burning my nostrils a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think this wine is hot. Is
Yes.
what we'd call it. It's a hot wine.
Hot wine, okay. Always down for a hot wine. All right, should we taste these suckers?
Let's taste them.
All
Let's go
right.
back to wine number one.
Back to one.
All right, so on the palate, as we say.
On the palate?
Fun.
Oh, it's lighter than I thought it would be, actually.
Yep. Yeah.
Just based on the smell, but it's very fruity.
Viscosity's lower.
Yes.
The fruit, I would say what I would call it is a little more candied.
Yes, yeah, it's sweet.
And it's almost like they rolled that sort of bloody cherry through a little bit of sugar.
Right.
It's not a sweet wine,
Okay,
but the
yeah.
fruit quality of it exhibits a little bit of like sweet fruit.
Yes.
Almost like fake pie.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's a great descriptor. It's almost like, and it's sweet on the front end, so you can taste it right on the tip of your tongue. You can taste that
Absolutely.
sweetness.
Yep.
I like that. I usually don't, so I'm impressed by that.
fun one.
This is great. Okay, let's try this guy.
Wine number two.
Definitely more acidity, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm getting a little salivaty.
A little salivating.
You can tell.
I think one of the things that that this exhibits for me is that sort of family of chocolate and mocha and coffee. So if you've ever had like a mocha latte, it reminds me a lot of like that.
I get that too.
Rich.
Yes, and on again, it's nice to be able to tell that richness is almost on the back end, whereas that sweetness on the first one is on the front end. So it's definitely feels like it's a little bit more of a heavy wine, maybe.
Fuller body for sure.
Fuller body.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Heavy's not a good marketing term.
That's fair. Exactly. You want it. Yes. Exactly.
Some folks like fuller body things.
Yeah, fuller body.
That's it.
Exactly. Well, this is great. So in terms of tasting whites versus reds, there's really no difference in terms of the actual process in which to go by tasting the wine itself.
They are very similar, for sure. And so now it really is a game. If we had a lot more time, we'd go through the game of what it's not.
Sure.
But I know it's hard to see on camera, but this wine is a lot lighter in color and darker.
Yes.
So this tells me that this is probably not a Cabernet or a Syrah or a big Sangiovese.
Yeah.
And it's a very fruity wine. So as a result, I'm going to say it's a lighter style like Pinot Noir or Gamay.
Okay.
Just by looking and smelling it, I would get there.
Okay.
The second wine is on a darker, richer side. It's very fruity, and it's not really oaky that much, if at all. So this was probably made in a very hot place near a body of water without a lot of oak. And it's a young wine.
Yes.
So I'd probably say something like Argentina, like a Malbec, or a Shiraz from Australia.
Okay. Well, Matt, thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and I really have learned so much about tasting and how to properly do it.
My pleasure.
I will have you grab whichever one you prefer, and I would love to cheers.
Right here.
Yes,
yeah, cheers.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thank you.
Cheers to you guys at
Cheers
home.
all.